Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Green Action Center's Cooking with Food Scraps virtual cooking show and webinar. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kristen Malik, and I am one of the Compost program coordinators at Green Action Center. And I will be your host, moderator, and co-presenter today. This webinar is the second webinar in our four-part compost and food waste webinar series. We have two more coming up on Thursday. At 2 p.m. we have our composting and recycling myths webinar. So we'll be answering all your questions about composting and recycling, and we'll actually have a panelist from Multi-Material Stewardships Manitoba. So it'll be very great to have her there because she will be able to answer a lot of your recycling questions. And later on that evening at 7 p.m., we'll be hosting a compost bin building workshop. So we'll be showing you two different types of wooden compost bins to build. So that'll be lots of fun. All right, and the reason why we're hosting the webinar series this week is because it's National Waste Reduction Week. Woohoo! Happy Waste Reduction Week, everyone. For those of you who don't know, Waste Reduction Week has been going on for 20 years now, actually. It's celebrated in Canada. It's an annual event, and it basically celebrates and recognizes and encourages waste reduction efforts. So if you'd like to learn more about the Waste Reduction Week, or find out about the other events going on throughout Canada, you can check out their website, wrwcanada.com. And of course, I forgot to mention that if you want to find out more about our webinar series, or to register, you can check out our website, greenactioncentre.ca. Of course, I would like to say a big thank you to the City of Winnipeg for supporting this webinar series. Thanks to their funding support, we're able to offer this webinar free of charge. So that's a great thing. Before we begin the presentation and cooking show, I would like to begin by acknowledging that Green Action Centre is located in Treaty 1 territory, and that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. The water we drink comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation on Treaty 3 territory. We respect the treaties that were signed and recognize that harms and mistakes have been made. We know reconciliation is a journey that requires dialogue and action, and we are focusing on learning how to practice reconciliation in our everyday work at Green Action Centre. Okay, and with that, I'm excited to have Lea Cote here with me. Lea, do you want to come say hi on your camera?
Hi.
Hey. She is my co-compost program coordinator at Green Action Centre, and she will be cooking up some delicious recipes for us in her kitchen. I don't think Lea ever thought she was going to be a cooking show host. Hey, Lea?
Never.
Okay, you can go back now, Lea.
Okay.
Just want to say hi.
Okay.
All right, so before we get started, I'll quickly go over how this webinar is going to go. Throughout the webinar, we'll switch back and forth between Lea and I. I'll be showing some slides talking about what food waste is and why we should care about it. And also I'll be sharing tips on how to prevent food waste at home. And then Lea will be showing 3 different recipes that use uncommonly used parts of fruits and vegetables. These parts we usually tend to throw out. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar. We welcome questions. If you're watching on Zoom, you can type your questions into the chat box. And if you're watching on Facebook, type in your questions in the comment section of the video. If we don't get to your questions throughout the presentation or the webinar, we can address them afterwards. So to start things off, I'm going to share my screen. Sorry about that. All right. So I'm going to give everyone a little backgrounder about Green Action Center. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a nonprofit organization based in Winnipeg. And we promote greener living through environmental education and by advocating for policy change. Our main focus areas are sustainable transportation, waste reduction, and composting and food waste. So some of you may be familiar with popular events that we hold, such as Commuter Challenge and Jack Frost Challenge and Clean Air Day. Several years ago, we included food waste prevention programming into our compost program. And we definitely see it as a top priority when it comes to organics management. So as you can see on the slide, we prioritize organics management in the following order. Food waste prevention, number one, composting on site, and then centralized composting. So composting obviously is very important. But when we think about the big picture, we want to go back to the 4 R's: rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle. They're in that order for a reason, because we should be rethinking and reducing before we reuse and recycle. So first and foremost, preventing food waste should be our top priority before composting our food waste. This is because the prevention of food waste results in many benefits for the environment, the economy, and our society. But when you can't prevent when you can't prevent your waste or share the leftovers, then composting in your backyard, like on site, is the next best option. This is because we don't have to transport this waste, so it reduces greenhouse gas emissions in that way. And then if that isn't possible, because composting on site obviously is not always possible, then a centralized composting system is the next best option, such as citywide composting or community compost bin. That's obviously much better than throwing the food into the landfill. So in addition to providing composting education and programming for schools, residents of Winnipeg and Manitoba, and for workplaces, we also provide food waste prevention programming that encourages and initiates food waste prevention for those 3 sectors of the community. Okay, so what is food waste exactly? Well, food waste is when we discard of food that's safe and nutritious for human consumption, or when we use it for alternative uses. So we don't eat it, but we use it to carve a pumpkin for a jack-o'-lantern. Probably most of us, once we carve a pumpkin for Halloween, most of us don't eat it. We just throw it out. Hopefully compost it, not in the landfill, but it's still a waste of food for sure. So from the farm to our fridges, food waste actually occurs at each stage of the value chain. For example, apples will rot under trees due to labor shortages or low prices, making it uneconomical for farmers to harvest the apples. In factories, so that would be the processing and manufacturing stage, ugly foods are discarded. Apparently we have to have vegetables and fruits that look perfect. Orders can be changed last minute. So something that already has been packaged and has been destined for a store would then be discarded. Even distribution to grocery stores, waste can happen. Say you have a refrigeration truck transporting perishable foods to grocery store and the refrigerator stops working, that food can spoil. And then at the grocery store, that is where food can be wasted. Again, they tend to separate out the ugly fruits and vegetables and throw those out, as well as food close to or on their best before date. And I'll be talking about that later on in the presentation. And then we have food at the consumer level, which includes the grocery stores. It also includes households, hotels, restaurants, hospitals, where perfectly good leftover food are thrown out. So as you can see at the top of the slide, in 2019, Canada's food waste represented 49.46, so almost $50 billion worth of food is wasted, which is that's a lot of food, but it's kind of hard to put into context too. So 58% of all food produced in Canada is wasted, and 32% of this is avoidable. So examples of unavoidable waste would be foods that aren't edible, like animal bones, tea bags, eggshells. But if we want to get really creative, we actually could use those products as well. But I digress. That's another thing we can get into later on. In Canada, most food is actually wasted in factories, so on the processing and manufacturing of food. And secondly, on the consumer side, so in our households, grocery stores, restaurants, and such. The most common items that we waste are actually fruits, vegetables, and grains. So I think we can all relate that most, we'll have those forgotten about vegetables in the back of the fridge that get moldy, or the fruits that kind of sit around for ages. Lemons are a culprit for us in our house, or the bread that sits out too long. So why does it matter if we waste food? Well, collectively, it actually has a major effect on the environment and on climate change when we waste food. So a stat that really sticks with me, it's from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO. Food waste contributes 8% of global gas emissions. So what does that mean? To put in perspective, if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases behind China and the US. So that's a lot of people, when they think of food waste, they don't think of it as a big contributor towards climate change. And of course, on the social side of things, there's 3.9 million Canadians living in poverty that could benefit from this wasted food that's still good to eat. And this stat was from 2020 report from the Canadian government, but that doesn't include COVID times. So I'm sure that's there's even more than 3.9 million Canadians living below the poverty line right now. So what can we do about it? Well, that's what we're all here for today, aren't we? Obviously, changes need to be made at every stage of the food supply chain, but at a personal level, we can make changes so that we waste less food ourselves. So as you can see on this slide, we have a variety of suggestions on how you can go about doing that. But first, we're now going to go to Lea in her kitchen, who's going to show us some recipes where we can use some parts of the fruits and veggies that we tend to throw out. Okay, I'll just stop sharing my screen and then we can go on to Lea.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Okay, so like Kristen mentioned, I will be doing a bit of cooking for you this morning. So we'll be featuring, well, morning, I guess it's lunchtime. Everyone's hungry. We'll be featuring 3 recipes for you today. So we're going to be using up food scraps that would otherwise go to a compost bin or even go to waste. So these recipes, they're tasty, they're healthy, and they're quick. Because I know I don't want to give you something elaborate that you might not want to try anyway. So the 3 recipes today are banana peel bacon, carrot top pesto, and broccoli stalk tacos. So before I begin, I just wanted to just start with a disclaimer. First, I'm not a professional chef. I don't cook for a living. I just cook for my family. So if you're expecting top quality cooking, it's not here. I just wanted to share some ideas with you, and because I'm passionate about food waste reduction. So secondly, we don't own these recipes that we're featuring today. We found them. They sound really interesting and a really good use of these food scraps. So when we go to feature each of the recipes, Kristen will have the link up, and we can share the links at the end if you're hungry and curious and want to try it out. So on that note, I'm going to jump right into the first recipe. So I'm going to start off with the banana bacon recipe. So the reason is because we have to marinate them for a little bit. So I've already previously made the marinade because I've already made these before. You can make the marinade and keep it for a few days in your fridge. So I've taken a picture of what goes into the marinade. Kristen's just going to pop that up.
Okay.
So for the special marinade here that I have ready to go, we will be using 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, a tablespoon of maple syrup, half a teaspoon of smoked paprika, and then another half teaspoon of garlic powder. And we just mix that all together in a container large enough to place your peels sort of laying flat. And so that's what we're going to do now. So the key thing with the banana bacon recipe is to have bananas that are fairly ripe. So the spottier the better. You don't want green bananas. They apparently don't taste very good if you use green bananas, but use very ripe bananas. So what we're going to do is peel the banana and keep the banana for later. You can make a smoothie. You can eat it, snack afterwards. So obviously banana is what we normally eat, but we're going to be obviously focusing on the peel. So I'm going to separate it into 4 pieces and then take the peel and sort of scrape off the inside sort of white part for each of them. Just sort of take all that inside out. Hopefully you can see clearly.
Yeah, we can see great.
Okay, great. So I've already prepped one here. This recipe calls, if you get 8 strips of bacon, you use 2 ripe bananas. So that's what I have ready to go here is 2 banana peels. So I'm just scraping off the inside. And it should generally just look like that. And then we will put it into our marinade. So the lid stays open, and I will just pop them in there and just let them soak for the rest of the cooking as we go through the other recipes.
So how long do they have to stay marinated for, Lea?
Yes, great question. Minimum 10 minutes, but the longer you leave them, the tastier they're going to be. So when I've done them before, I've left them all evening, made them early evening, and then several hours basically. But today we're probably just going to have them for the hour. So yeah, minimum 10 minutes.
No one wants
now
to,
that they're
no one wants to hang out with us for 2 hours.
no, especially when you can't eat the food through the screen, right? So yeah, so they're in there just soaking up the marinade, and I'm gonna set that aside. So while that is marinating, I'm just gonna turn the oven on right now for our next recipe, which is our broccoli stock tacos. So for these ones, obviously the food waste that we're going to be using up is broccoli stock, which is really exciting. A lot of people just eat the top and compost the rest. But today we're gonna make really delicious tacos. So we're gonna make a puree to coat the stalks all cut up, but we start with 6 broccoli stalks for this recipe. We cut the stalk off, and we actually are going to just peel the stalk just to take sort of the harder, maybe a bit more fibrous layer off. So I mean, it's a bit uneven surface, but do your best. So generally just take most of that off. It'll be a little softer on the inside. And then the recipe, actually this recipe, I forgot to say, comes from the IKEA scraps book. They made a food scraps recipe book, cookbook for us. So we're trying that one. So once you have your peeled broccoli stalk, you cut it on a bias. So I'm just gonna cut the harder end off. And so that just means cutting it at more of a 45-degree angle. It just helps increase surface area for your sauce or puree that we're gonna put on. So just cut it up. And to save time from everyone watching me not cut up 6 of them, I've already prepped the other 5. So I have all of the other ones ready to go here. So they're all together. And now we need to make our puree, the coating for our broccoli stock tacos. So I'm going to be using our food processor. It's like one of my favorite kitchen gadgets.
The best.
Super useful. Yeah. So for that one, I'm just going to pull in more of our ingredients into the screen here. We're going to be using some canned chipotle peppers. I have apple cider vinegar, honey, some salt. There's vinegar, olive oil. Sorry, I was looking at the apple cider vinegar. And yeah, that should be good. So I'm gonna load everything into our food processor. Trying to keep that in focus here. So I'm gonna start with the apple cider vinegar, actually. Make sure it's all mixed again. So this one calls for 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. another tablespoon of honey. I'm gonna get a tablespoon of honey. It's a bit harder to get out. There we go. Okay. Then we need 2 teaspoons of olive oil. Two. And then, oh, I forgot the garlic. So I already have pre-cut up garlic. So it's 1 full clove of garlic, finely minced, but that translates to half of a teaspoon of garlic. So I'm going to put that in.
You can't forget the garlic. That's
no,
the most important.
Yes, definitely. And then a pinch of salt. And a lot in there, but we're just gonna, it might be a little loud, so I might mute myself.
Oh, you know what? I can mute you right now. No one likes having a food processor sound right in their ear.
Okay, great. So that mixed up really well. And I'm going to put our broccoli stalks into a bit of a mixing bowl here. Oven's ready. And then I'm gonna pour the puree onto the broccoli stalks for coating them and marinating them a little bit before we put this into the oven. So when it goes into the oven, it's like I said, all these recipes are very quick. It goes into the oven only for about 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. So yeah, you don't have to wait long to eat your tacos.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, I was quite surprised. I mean, this is the harder part of the broccoli. I thought that it might take a little longer, but
I guess because they're excuse me, cut pretty thin, it makes the cooking process go a lot faster.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's such a shame, like to think that broccoli stalks are totally edible, and most of them are like, you even they sell broccoli tops without the stalks at the grocery store. Yeah, and I have a feeling they're probably thrown out.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think there's workers there making stock tacos in the back.
No.
Yeah. So I have our cooking pan ready to go. Just gonna spread this out all over and sort of spread it out so that it cooks a little bit evenly. Okay, and I'm going to put this in the oven for 8 minutes, and then I will let Kristen chat a little bit more about food waste, so that I'm not just watching me watch the stove.
Okay, thanks, Leah.
All
All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have a variety of tips to help you prevent or reduce your food waste. All right, the first one that we find quite helpful are portion planners. Sometimes it's really hard to determine, how much broccoli you need. I have broccoli in my mind for 4 people, or how much cheese I need for a recipe. So Love Food Hate Waste is a really great food waste reduction website. They have a bunch of different recipes, resources, but they also have a portion planner. So basically, you can select any type of ingredient for a recipe, or say for a meal. Say you want to have, some fish, so you can choose fish, and then the number of adults, toddlers, children, teenagers, and the number of meals you want it for. And then it'll calculate the portion for that meal. And it will show you how much you should buy in weight at the grocery store. And Love Food Hate Waste is a UK organization. So it shows you in grams instead of pounds, which is okay because our scales at the grocery store have grams and pounds. So that's really a great tool, because a lot of times we think we're going to eat more than we actually do, and that results in a lot of waste. So before we started talking about food waste at work, like before we started doing food waste programming, I actually didn't know that it's important to organize your fridge in a certain way. The reason is your fridge actually has different temperatures within itself. So the upper shelf and the door are actually the warmest parts of the fridge. So the door is a good spot to store your condiments, because as we all know, condiments last forever. That's because there's lots of vinegar, and usually tends to be lots of vinegar and salt in the condiments. So it's okay if they're in the warm part of the fridge. And then on the upper shelves, leftovers and snacks, or a baby bottle full of milk, or formula, are a good place to store those items, because they're not going to be staying in the fridge for a super long time. The lower shelf of the fridge is the coldest spot, so that's a good spot to store your meat. Another reason why you'd want to store your meat on the lowest shelf is it won't drip. If it happens to drip, it won't drip onto any other food below it. The middle shelf is a great spot to store your eggs and milk. There is actually a spot on the door to store your eggs. We recommend not storing your eggs in there because it's too warm. And your milk tends to go bad a little more quickly than other foods. So the middle shelf is a little more colder and will help it last longer there. You can also put yogurts and dips and drinks over there as well. So the crisper drawers, obviously at the bottom, we know that we store our fruits and veggies in there. But there's actually 2 different types of our fruits and veggies either prefer low humidity or high humidity. So in most fridges, not mine though, most fridges you have a low humidity drawer and a high humidity drawer, or you have you can change the humidity levels on the drawer as well. So the drawer that's labeled high humidity, that is best for veggies that are prone to wilting and need higher humidity. So that would be, your leafy greens. If they have higher humidity, then they tend to last a lot longer. That'd be leafy greens, green onions, cauliflower, which actually I was surprised about, carrots, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cucumbers. These vegetables are also very sensitive to ethylene. Ethylene gas is a gas that's emitted by fruits that help them to ripen. So if they're sitting next to those types of fruits, then it'll cause these vegetables to rot a lot quicker. And then the low humidity drawer, you're going to have lower humidity, and that's better for apples, avocados, grapes, mushrooms, peaches, pears, squash, mostly fruit, because if they're in high humidity, then they're going to rot a lot quicker. And citrus foods and melons after ripe can go in either drawer actually. And it's important not to pack your drawers full. It's best if they're 2/3 full. And same with your refrigerator as well. It's important not to pack it full because you need that air circulation in there. Sometimes it's easier said than done because especially during COVID, when we were going grocery shopping once every 2 weeks, like it would be a game trying to figure out how to fit everything into the fridge. So sometimes you just have to pack that fridge tight, but that's life. Nothing's perfect. Something else that is really important is making sure that your fridge is at the correct temperature, actually. So obviously we know our fridges don't want to be at a freezing point, because then you're going to freeze your produce and it's going to become a wilty mess. Sorry about that. You know, if your vegetables and fruits are frozen, then they just become all mushy and gross. But you don't want it to be too warm either. You know, food is kept safe in a fridge because it slows down the growth of most bacteria and mold. So you need to have your fridge between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius. And if you don't have a thermometer in your fridge, you can just simply stick a thermometer in your fridge to check to see that it's the correct temperature. All right, so I'm going to check in with Lea to see how things are going on her side, to see if the broccoli stalks are ready to come out of the oven. Lea, how's everything going over there?
Good. Yeah, they're just about, the timer's just about to go off. I may leave them in for another 2 minutes, which is fine because I have another recipe.
Great.
And it said 8 to 10 minutes anyway, so we're still good. There it goes.
Oh, I wish I could be there to taste it.
Yeah, I can smell it. It's really smelling fantastic in here. So while that's still roasting for another couple minutes, I'm just wanting it to just brown a little bit more. I'm gonna go on to our last recipe that I haven't introduced yet, which is the carrot top pesto. And just like you mentioned with the broccoli stalks, a lot of times you'll see carrots in the grocery store without the leaves, without the tops. Those are totally edible, as you'll see today. And so I have everything ready to go. This one's from simplyrecipes.com, I believe. So we also have that one linked if you need. So for this recipe, we'll need our food processor again. I cleaned it in between. It's all clean and good to go. Like I said, I really like food processors. For this recipe, obviously we're gonna have start with carrot tops. So it's the carrot tops with the sort of stems removed. So it's just the leaves mainly. So it's a cup of those. I'm gonna put those carefully. Ooh, I lost them. Carefully into the food processor. Then we have that. We also need a cup of baby spinach, and it said pack the cup. So I've washed and packed that in for a cup measurement. So I'm gonna fit that in as well. Oh, there it is. 1 second, I'll just check on that.
And we had a good suggestion
One
from
second.
Maureen. She was saying if you store carrots standing upright rather than laying flat, they actually last much longer. So there's less
Ah,
chance to rot. So that's interesting.
oh,
I guess
good
you
tip.
store them in
Yeah.
a jar or maybe like a basket where they can be upright.
Yeah, yeah, like a mason jar, you can sit them upright.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we have, yes, I just put them in one more minute. We have the carrot top, like the greens. We have the spinach. We have garlic again. And so this one asks for 1 large clove of garlic, like the last one, but it's roughly chopped. So that means a teaspoon. So I'm going to put a teaspoon last time, but half a teaspoon because it was finely minced. This is roughly chopped. So I'm going to put in my roughly chopped garlic into here. A teaspoon. It's getting mad at me in the background here. 1 second.
Oh, okay. Maureen replied back
I said it
saying
for
that
one more.
you can actually just store the carrots in the bag upright. That makes sense. I don't know. I didn't think of that.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna let those cool because those are just fresh from the oven. You can see them steaming.
Oh yeah, that looks so good, Leah.
So yeah, I know they smell amazing. So yeah, while those are cooling, I'm gonna finish up the pesto. So sorry, that was distracting between the two. We have the carrot tops, we have the spinach, we have the garlic in here. Next, we have half a cup of roasted unsalted cashews. So I'm gonna toss those in here. It's getting quite packed. Then we put a half a teaspoon of sea salt. Well, that's not happened before. I actually lost my measuring spoon.
Your teeth. That's a
Good
first.
thing I have, yeah, good thing I have another measuring spoon. So
Oh, cooking show fails.
I'm running a little bit low on salt, so that's why you have to dig quite so low in there.
It's gonna be hard to get that out.
Yep, I'll do it later, right? That's what I said, right? No, I'm not a professional. Don't expect professional quality.
Oh,
So,
hey.
so we have the sea salt and then a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Luckily, it's not in a container this time. So just a 1/4 teaspoon. And then we will also have half a cup of olive oil, but we're gonna slowly drip that in. I have a little hole on the top where you just slowly pour it into the food processor. Oh, like I said, it's quite packed. So I'm gonna prep the olive oil here so I can pour that in. Half a cup, like I said. So I have that ready to go. And then you sort of just pulse the food processor to begin with, just to start mixing it up, and then you slowly pour in the olive oil. So I'm gonna just quickly pulse it. So that's gone down quite a bit, which is great. I might ask you to mute so that it's not
Sure.
all that annoying sound.
Yeah. I'll just talk about how Beth mentioned in the chat box that she's actually asked at the grocery store to buy leftover broccoli stalks, but they won't actually sell them, which is too bad. I feel like it's a way for them to make some more money, actually. But and something else that Beth mentioned about the produce drawers in your fridge, there's a slider, and it's the slider that you move to. If you want low humidity, then you open the slider all the way so that it lets out the humidity in the crisper drawer, and if you close it all the way, then it makes it really high humidity because you don't allow the moisture to leave the drawer. Thanks for that, Beth. Oh, Sylvie had an interesting question. So she has one humidity controlled crisper and then the other, and then just a crisper for the other. So which one would be low and high humidity? So I feel like the crisper that's not humidity controlled would be high humidity because you have nothing letting out the moisture, and then the humidity controlled one, you can make that low humidity because you can open you can open the slider so that moisture can be let out. I think if that makes sense. Oh, there's no slider. Oh, I don't know. Maybe Leah knows. Here, I don't know if she's still doing her food processing. Looks like it. I have a really old fridge, so there's no humidity control on my crisper drawers.
There, I think I can unmute myself now. Great, so it's definitely the slow drip when we use this spout for the olive oil. So I've mixed it all now. I'll try and show you.
Ooh, that looks good.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try it afterwards. I have some noodles. I'm gonna mix it in and try it out, but this turned out fantastic. So I'm gonna set that aside just for now. And I'm just gonna finish up the broccoli tacos, and then I'll finish everything with the banana bacon. So for the broccoli tacos, another thing, so as you're putting them together, it calls for a little bit of hummus on the bottom. So I'm just gonna start with a layer of hummus. I'm gonna grab a spoon actually, and grab just a little bit of the now roasted broccoli tacos into here. This recipe with the 6 stalks, it will actually make 12 tacos. So it's quite a lot.
That's a big recipe.
Yeah. Then it asks for some slaw. So I made a little bit of slaw with some rice vinegar and sugar. I'm going to top with that.
Is it a cabbage slaw?
Yeah. 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 Then it asks for 2 slices of avocado, which are freshly sliced them up right before this. A little bit of sour cream, so just a dollop of sour cream, and then top off with a little bit of feta cheese. It asks for a different cheese, but feta is its substitute, is a great alternative for that. So just gonna top it off with some feta. Okay, I'm gonna try this out.
Ooh, that looks so good.
Really good. Good job, IKEA.
All right. Well, I'm excited to try that, Leah. I have to totally do that now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, while Leah is cleaning up and finishing off her bite of broccoli tacos, I'm going to get back to some more tips that we want to share with you all. Just give me while I just share my screen. All right. Something else that I actually find really neat is making a fridge food waste list. So instead of making a grocery list, you write out what you've tossed out. So it's a helpful way to make an inventory of what you tend to waste, which means maybe you don't want to buy that certain food anymore or buy less of it. So you can have a paper on the front of your fridge, or if you really don't like having clutter on your fridge, you can actually write it on the inside of your fridge with an erasable marker. And something else, a little hack from the Rachel Ray show actually was use an erasable marker to list the contents of your fridge with their expiration dates directly on the inside wall of the refrigerator. So it's kind of interesting. And something else you can do, and a lot of people do this informally already, is create a food pool with your neighbors or your family or friends, so that if you have too much of a certain food that you're just not going to get to, share it with the folks in your food pool, especially in gardening season too. That's a great way to get rid of excess produce that you're just not going to get to. Like for me, I think, oh, maybe I'll do some canning, or I'll or clean it up and chop it up and put it in the freezer. But I have 2 young kids and it usually doesn't happen right now. So I'd rather much give it to someone else instead of wasting it, and then they can benefit from it. And I'll talk a little bit more in the next couple slides about ways you can do that as well with people you don't know. And something that we feel is really important is, and it actually causes quite a bit of food waste, is the confusion between best before dates and expiration dates. So those terms are used very interchangeably and usually incorrectly. So most people, when they see a best before date, they think it's an expiration date, but they're not. Best before dates are very different than expiry dates. Expiry dates are for specific food items where their nutritional specifications may not be met after that date. Best before dates are actually, they're not an indicator of food safety whatsoever. Food can be sold after the best before date. Most stores won't do that. What stores can do is they can either send the foods back to the manufacturer, where it'll probably be thrown out, or the stores throw the food out after the best before date. Best before date are actually chosen by manufacturers and retailers. It's not mandated by law on when the best before date should be. And it reflects the when the food will, how the food will retain its taste, quality, and freshness. So after the best before date, it may not taste just as fresh or how it should, but it's still totally fine to eat. And foods with a shelf life of 90 days or less are required to have best before dates, but there's tons of foods in the grocery store that have best before dates that don't require them. Cereal, crackers, canned goods, noodles, dried soups, they don't need best before dates whatsoever. I will say best before, I think I had a falafel mix. And the best before date was 2013. And so I tried it out. It was disgusting. So there is a point when eventually things do go bad. It tasted like the box and really stale. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a poll. We're going to do a little fun quiz. So I'm going to have a poll for each food item. So everyone's going to guess how long each food item lasts. All right, so how long do you think eggs last after their best before date? 3 to 4 days, about a week, 2 weeks, or about a month after the best before date? So I'll wait just a little bit to see, let everyone answer. Okay, so we have 3 people say 2 weeks, and it's 40% of everyone else says about a month, say about a month. So according to this is 3 to 4 weeks, but it depends. I get farm fresh eggs and they can last for 2 months. So I always say, look to see if it's mold, if something's moldy, and smell it. And if it looks and smells fine, then go for it. All right. Okay. So how long do you think milk lasts after its best before date? 3 to 4 days. Oh, oops, sorry, wrong one. Stop. Polls. Ah, there we go. Excuse my, there. Okay. How long do you think milk will last after its best before date? 3 to 4 days, about a week, 2 weeks, about a month. Okay, oh, we've got more variety here. All right, so half of you say about a week. A couple of you said 2 weeks, and one of you said 3 to 4 days. All right, about a week after its best before date. All right, what about meat? 3 to 4 days, about a week, 2 weeks, about a month. Okay, we've got some, oh yeah. Wait for, there was 6 of you participating last time. All right, we'll go with that. Okay, so most of you think it's 3 to 4 days. Someone thought a week. 3 to 4 days. Yeah, you got it. And the freezer is my best friend. That's where we store all of our meat because then it can last for much longer after its best before date. All right, bread. 3 to 4 days, about a week, 2 weeks, about a month after the best before date. I love to, while I'm waiting for people to answer, we never even keep our bread on the counter because we don't go through it super quickly. So we just keep it in the freezer and we avoid it going moldy. Okay, so there's some people say about a week. 40% say 2 weeks. There's a tie for a week and 2 weeks, and someone thought a month. 5 to 7 days actually, so a week. All right, last one. Let's do the cheese. Okay, 3 to 4 days, about a week, 2 weeks, or about a month after its best before date. Yeah, I see some consistency here in the answers. All right, you all guessed about a month. Yeah, so 3 to 4 weeks past the printed date. And again, I love to put cheese in the freezer too. We stock up. All right. So I was mentioning best before dates. Expiration dates are not the same as best before dates. They're actually only required on very certain foods. These foods have strict compositional and nutritional specifications, which might not be met after the expiration date. So that would be infant formula, nutritional supplements, meal replacements, and formulated liquid diets. So this is these you have to get from a pharmacy. That's for someone who is being tube fed, like that's all they're eating. So of course, it's very important that these foods have the nutritional requirements because folks are relying on them to get most of their nutrients from these products. So these are the only products that have expiration dates. Everything else has best before dates. So there's a lot of us have to just learn to not be so afraid of the best before dates. Because some people, once they see that best before date, they think, oh, it's bad, I have to throw it out. And especially if something hasn't been opened yet, it can last quite a while after its best before date, like yogurt. All right, so that kind of wraps it up for our tips. If you want to delve deeper into recipes and other ways to reduce your food waste, there's a lot of great food waste recipe books and books out there. The ones you see on the slide, these are some really great books. I love My Zero Waste Kitchen. It actually shows you ways to incorporate eggshells into your food, into your meals, which is really cool. So you're really not wasting a lot. And also what we don't have on here is the IKEA cooking with, what is it called again? It's called, it has, I can't remember what it's called, but if you look up the IKEA food scraps cookbook, it's free and you can download it as a PDF or as an ebook on your phone actually. So that's really cool. And you can follow us for more tips. So if you go to greenactioncenter.ca on our composting page, we'll have resources for schools at home. And then we actually have a food waste quiz in 4 different languages. So English, French, Ojibwe, and Cree. So that's a great tool for teaching folks about food waste. And of course, there's a lot of online resources that you can look up. The Second Harvest, the Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste. Their report was created in 2019, and it's a really in-depth look at food waste in Canada. And that's what we have used for most of our programming and for our stats in this presentation. So definitely check it out if you want to really look more into it. And then Second Harvest Food Rescue and Leftovers Foundation are, and Love Food Hate Waste. They're all really great resources to, again, learn more how to reduce your food waste. Second Harvest has a lot of online courses you can take as well. They all have different recipes to use. And Second Harvest, Food Rescue and Leftovers Foundation, what they do is they actually connect businesses with surplus food that is still good to eat with nonprofit organizations and charities who will take the food and dole it out to folks who need the food. So if you go to Second Harvest website, you can actually see a map of where in Manitoba, what stores or what businesses are donating their food and what organizations are receiving the food. So there's like Sobeys, Starbucks, Little Caesars Pizza, Food Fair donating the food. There's lots of other businesses, and you have schools, shelters, food banks that are receiving the foods. So both organizations are working in Winnipeg, and you can also volunteer there too. So you can volunteer to pick up food and deliver food and lots of other things as well if you really want to get involved. And then one other thing is there's some really great apps around where you can connect with other folks in the community. So it's a great way to food pool, as I mentioned before, or get rid of other items that you don't need anymore. Instead of selling it or putting it in the landfill, you can actually just put it up for sale or trade it with others. So the Olio app is specifically for food. So that's where people trade food or give away food they don't need. There's not many people participating in it in Winnipeg, but the Buns Trading Zone in Facebook is Winnipeg wide, and you can trade food, drinks, anything, household items, clothing, tires, anything. I love it. It's really fun. And then there's buy nothing neighborhood groups as well. So you look for the neighborhood that you live in. And there's also the community compost bin connector on sharewaste.com. So if you don't have a compost bin in your backyard, you can actually look for compost bins in your area. So what people do is they have a compost bin in their backyard and they have enough room in the compost bin. They can actually put themselves on the website saying, hey, you can come to me and put stuff in my compost bin, and they'll have a list of what they would accept in their bin. So it's a great way to connect people that way. And lastly is the Flash Food app. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I love it. It's on, there's only 2 stores that participate. It's Superstore and No Frills in Winnipeg, and Brandon, Selkirk, Steinbach, and Winkler. So what happens is that morning and throughout the day, the store will post foods that have a best before date of that day or the next day, and they're 50% off. So you just buy the food on the app and then you go to the store and pick it up. It's great. I love it. It's kind of like a fun little game to see what good deals you can get. All right. Okay. So Lea, we should go back to Lea and see how things are going with her banana peel bacon recipe.
Yeah. I moved it a little closer because I'm frying it up. I was looking at the time, and I know I didn't want to go over time for you folks. You're probably very hungry at this point watching everything that I've been making. By the way, I'll admit I totally ate that whole broccoli stock taco while you were talking. It's so delicious. So I've just been frying up the banana peels that we had sitting in the marinade. I just put a little bit of oil, so I used just some coconut oil in the frying pan, and these cook really quickly. They're probably about 5 minutes aside. I've already made some here, so you get them where they're browned, quite browned and sort of bubbly. And just like the other 2 recipes, these are absolutely delicious. My husband's a vegetarian and he thinks these are the best things ever. They really taste like bacon, baked bacon, but they taste like bacon. So I know definitely we won't be wasting our banana peels anymore. So yeah, if you're interested, all those recipes like Kristen had on the page there, they're all there. I did see that question about the broccoli stock. It's from the IKEA scraps book.
And know what? I'm also just putting the links to all the recipes in the chat box on Zoom right now.
Perfect.
Yeah, so everyone can see that.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And so how long does it take to fry these up, Lea?
I'd say about like 5 or 6 minutes aside.
Okay.
They're actually quite quick. So
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
And
they're fantastic.
Yeah, and you can check those recipes out. Did you want me to go show the slides, Lea, and then should we come back to you, or?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just show, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, I will just show the links for the recipes. And then after that, we'll go back to Lea to end things very soon. So the banana peel bacon was from It Doesn't Taste Like Chicken website. which I think is hilarious. Carrot top pesto from Simply Recipes, and then the broccoli stock tacos were from IKEA's scrapbook, zero waste recipes. Yeah, so that's it. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing at Green Action Center, you can sign up for our newsletter once a month or check us out on social media and our website, greenactioncenter.ca. Okay, how's it going over there, Leah?
Great. Okay, I was muted. Yeah, all good. I'm just gonna pull these last ones off. They're ready to go. I could try and sort of pull the camera over here. The thing is just on a movable tripod. But yeah, you can see they're quite brown and bubbling. So they're ready to come off and eat.
Are they nice and are they crunchy?
Yeah, so they are, like, you'll see this one's like quite crispy. It helps too if you want, because they might be a little bit oily from the pan. You can put maybe a little bit of paper towel on the bottom to absorb it up, the oil up a little bit, and they get a little bit crispier after that. So yeah,
that's how I like my bacon, nice and crispy.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for inviting us into your kitchen, Leah.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to join us today, and that they all turned out great.
Oh yes, and Sylvie said she guesses it's best to buy organic bananas for these. That's a really good point. Yeah, to avoid those pesticides.
Yeah, I meant to mention that as well, but thanks. Yeah, thanks, Sylvie.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Well, Leah's just chomping down over there. If you have any questions about food waste programming or composting, there's our compost info line. I'll just share the screen so you can see that. Or you can call us, give us a shout, or send us an email at compost@greenactioncenter.ca. And don't forget to check out our next 2 webinars coming up on Thursday. I think they'll be lots of fun. Go to our website, greenactioncenter.ca. And thanks for joining us, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.